Hi, everyone. We're just going to give a minute for everyone to join. And if you've joined, a lot of you are already starting to put your answers into the chat. Thank you for doing so. If you haven't had a chance already, we would love to hear from you. What do you want most for your students? And we'll start in just a minute as people are just signing on, reading, thinking. Lots of great answers already coming in. Sierra, to ignite this passion for learning, their passion for learning, a sense of community. A lot of people just want our kids to feel safe and secure. Karen, I love the way you say it, safe, secure, prepared, and empowered. A sense of normalcy, Norm wants. I think that's appropriate in many ways. Lindsay, I love this, an open mind for a great and safe new school year. I'll let those answers keep them coming, so don't stop if you hadn't had a chance to write yet. Keep them coming. We're going to look at those. But I wanted to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to spend the next hour planning for the future, which is hard because we don't know what the future will bring us. No one knows at this point. But we do know that educators, just like many others, people in the world, are the type of people that no matter what is thrown at us, we are going to find a way to make this work. And I know that you have seen all of these things and you have been inspired in your mind and your heart by the posts, the songs that educators have made up, the movies, the videos that we've seen. Just yesterday, I saw a great video of a teacher who really wanted to provide her students hugs, and so she created a plastic kind of bodysuit in order to do that in a safe way. And that is just certainly one example that hit home to my heart, but there's plenty of examples of educators who are going above and beyond and really showing that doesn't matter what life throws at us, we are going to find a way to educate the kids and make our kids feel safe and happy and know that they're loved. And so excited to kind of hear from you. Brooke also wants our students to be safe. That's a common theme. Stephen feels the same way. First and foremost, Joan wants everyone to be safe. We all agree with that. But we also want students to be connected and supported. The joy of learning, we're excited to bring that back. Our sense of community, a lot of themes here. Go ahead and read what the other people, the participants are saying. A lot of you are thinking the same thing and could not agree with them more. I want to introduce myself. Some of you I know already, some of you I don't. I am Stacy Gershkovich. I work here, here, I'm in my home right now. I work at Success Academies at the Robertson Center. I'm in charge of sharing the work that our team is doing with the outside world. And so I'm excited to have the opportunity to share with you today a little bit about what we are doing, what we have kind of experienced in our reality over the last couple months, thinking through how we're using that to plan for both the summer and the fall. So also want to introduce to you, we have on the line Jessica C., who's our Director of Humanities, who is intimately involved with all of the teaching and learning that's happening at Success Academies every day, and excited to have her join to share a lot of more details about what it is that we're doing this summer and beyond. So with that said, want to just set a couple of logistics. One, this is being recorded, so if you signed on late or you know someone who is not signed on yet, just assure them they will get a recording of this, so no worries there. Also, as I know a lot of you have seen, there is a chat, an event chat. We encourage you to use that event chat. This is certainly a place where we want a community to come together, certainly remotely, but we want you to come together. We want you to have conversations, so feel free to use that event chat as you see fit. Also want to point out the Q&A that we have. So on your screen, you'll also see a Q&A box. If you have a larger question that you would hope that we can answer, please go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And we've saved plenty of time at the end of this session to get to as many of those questions as we can. Want to shout out my team at the Robertson Center, Sam, Alora, Victoria, Becky, who are all on there in the chat, in the Q&A, and will help us with that. So thank you guys. I think you know this, but this has been a series. Maybe this is the first you're joining. Maybe this is, you've been here for everyone. And if so, welcome back. But we started what feels like so long ago, and really was just, I had to check the date. It was at the end of March, where we shared our initial approach to remote learning, what we were doing from the very get-go when we only had a little bit of time to scramble and figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? And how are we going to communicate to our 18,000 students and families? We also came back together to talk about math instruction particularly, and how we can help parents help their students with math, which is particularly challenging for a variety of reasons. And now we are back to talk about summer and beyond. We'll be sharing some resources out after this presentation. So if you're not already familiar, we have released our plans that we used in the beginning of remote learning, and you'll get a chance to access those if you haven't seen them already. So with that said, let's dive right in. We are going to take some time to reflect. I think we've all been kind of running and rushing and doing everything we can to prepare for, tomorrow, the next week, and the next month. And we wanted to take this moment to kind of stop, take a deep breath. Let's do that. And really take a moment to think about what has happened so far, what's going well, what do we want to change, and use that to plan for forward. As I said, we're going to share, or Jessica's going to share some of our lessons learned, and we're going to think about how we're going to use that to plan for the future. So, as always, certainly our reality is all different on so many levels, but as always, our schools are different, our locations are different, our positions are different. And so we want to share what we're doing, not because we believe everyone should do it, but we believe that it's helpful to hear what other people are doing as a way to reflect on our thoughts, as a way to maybe confirm something that we are already doing, that we like, it's working for us, and then you hear other people are doing the same. Hopefully inspire people to think about new ideas and new ways, and I know you're going to share with us and inspire us as much as we hopefully will inspire you. And so as always, you should take what you want and leave the rest. We won't be offended. So with that, hopefully you received in your email before attending here a reflection form. If for whatever reason you haven't seen that yet, no worries, you don't need it right now. But if you have it or can access it, please go ahead and do so. This is a reflection sheet that if you have been to any of our workshops before, you have seen before. It is a document that we use, and not so much the document, it is a process that we use when we are going about any change. When we are thinking about what is working for us and what is not, we want to take some time to kind of go through all of these steps. We found too often we were so quick to jump to the plan, and really what we want to encourage you with this document to do, and we want to encourage ourselves to do, is to take some time to think about everything before we kind of jump to solutions. So in the document, you're going to see a couple of things. One, I want to encourage you to think about thinking. So often, again, we take time, we go right into the solutions. Some of the document is just intended to make you stop and think, and not just think by yourself, but ideally use this document with a significant number of your team members. And so everyone thinking together, sharing their perspectives will be a really powerful opportunity. I want to mention that this document is certainly meant to be iterative. So you are going to write something in the beginning. My expectation is that it will likely change. So that might be a reason to do it on the computer, or a reason to do it in pencil, or be comfortable crossing things off or editing them as you go. So a couple of things I just wanted to highlight from that document. You'll notice it starts with your vision. What we always consider is, what is it that we are trying to accomplish? And I want you to consider, what are you trying to accomplish? Everyone's going to answer that in a little different way. And I think it's really powerful to hear how your colleagues answer that. So if you are thinking about your summer plans, you really want to think about what is your vision? What is most important? What are we trying to accomplish? And that goes back to, what do we believe about teaching and learning? What do we believe about the purpose of the summer? And taking the time to think about that, answer those questions, and really engage in conversation with your colleagues is certainly a really powerful step that shouldn't be skipped. The second thing that I want to highlight is the focus areas. This is something that I've learned and I continue to learn all of the time, but it is not just what you are going to do, but it is also what you are not going to do. So when you consider your focus areas, I encourage you to write down what are the things you want to focus on, but also commit to what are the things you are not going to focus on right now. Too often, we kind of want to throw one more thing in. We want to take on one more thing. This is a great characteristic, right? We're all eager to change and improve our schools as much as we possibly can. But when we try to do everything, in our opinions, we typically do everything kind of good, right? And our goal is to prioritize and really do one or two things well, and then move on to the next things. And then the last thing I just want to highlight from the document is the plan. Really getting into the nitty-gritty details. We've made this mistake before, I'm sure you have too, where we forget to communicate to a key group, or we forget a specific aspect of the schedule or some other detail to change. My recommendation is, when you use this plan, save it, keep it, and use that for anything else you do moving forward, because the plan, while the details will change, the general structure will remain the same. And if you kind of start with that plan and build from there, it'll help you remember all of the necessary steps that you need to take. So that it should be a living, breathing document that you kind of go back to as you're implementing your plan, and then certainly as you implement future plans. So that said, you have the document in front of you. Certainly we don't expect that you're going to do it right now, but we do hope that you right now have it in front of you and can start to take notes and can start to jot down thoughts that you're having as you sit here, because we know often those thoughts kind of go in our brain and then something happens and they go out of our brain. So take a moment, jot down. If you don't have that document, don't worry. Take a piece of paper or any other place and go ahead and jot it there. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to Jess, who's going to go into the details of what we are planning for the summer.
Great. Thank you so much, Stacy. It's wonderful to be here with all of you today. And we're going to spend the next few minutes really sharing with you some of the ways we're thinking about planning for the summer, supporting learning as our students head into their summers. And then we're excited to hear from you about what you're planning for the summer and what you're really most excited about. So I'll start with some guiding principles that, as we're planning for our students at Success Academy, we're really thinking about how critically important homework needs to be viewed as, meaning that summer homework shouldn't be an afterthought or something that maybe happens, but that anything that we ask our students to do should be something that really is helpful, and that is something we see as benefiting their learning, enjoyable for them to do with their parents, and really gets them eager and excited to continue learning over the summer. So that's point one, just making sure that it's really thoughtful, helpful. We also think about approaching our summer homework as essential pre-coursework, meaning that I saw the beginning chat, and many of you had named something we're thinking about here at Success, that kids have gaps. And during this sort of time of remote learning, we're seeing those gaps, and we want to make sure that kids are engaged and we're supporting them. And so we're really thinking about our summer homework as pre-coursework that will help them to be prepared for the next grade and support them in their learning. So from reading books so that they're ready for their reading in the next grade, to doing some type of math problems that are related to the math they've been learning, that this summer homework should be an opportunity for them to continue solidifying the thinking work that they've done in this grade and really make sure that they're prepared as pre-coursework for the next grade. The third point is to really beware of over-reliance on the teacher. I have found such a silver lining in this very strange time of remote learning to see how independent our kids can be. And it's been really exciting for me to see some instruction during video conference, to hear kids discussing with each other, or even on quick phone calls that our teachers are making, that kids are so excited to share what they've learned, whether it's a science book that they've read or a math problem that they really worked their way through thoughtfully. It's been really neat to just see how incredibly capable our kids are. And so we are really thinking about how, as we prepare for summer homework, to use that lesson from remote learning, that our kids don't need to be reliant upon us, and that if we give them great opportunities to read interesting books, to make sure that they have interesting tasks, they'll be able to do that learning independently on the summer on their own. We also are prioritizing digital resources, knowing that the summer is very different than previous summers where we have sent students home with a packet of perhaps a place to share what they're reading, perhaps math problems on a piece of paper. We aren't doing that this year. Just like many of you, we are in remote learning fully. And so we're thinking about what are the simple, clear digital resources that we can share with our parents. And so we're thinking about Tumble Books, which is a great platform so that kids could have access through their local public library, and making sure that we're sharing access to library cards so that parents can use digital resources and keep that reading going at home digitally. And so one of our important priorities is digital. We also are very focused on productive struggle, meaning we want great high quality tasks. We would much prefer, and this builds on Stacy's previous math presentation, that kids do a really challenging, interesting, complex math problem than 20 more simple problems to build their fluency. And of course, both are critical, but we're really focused on the really interesting, engaging math problems that engage our kids in challenging problem solving and help them to productively struggle, because we know that's how kids learn best. We're thinking about the same for reading, that we'd rather pick one strong book for reading so that kids are able to be supported in one book that everyone in a certain grade level is reading across our network, as well as books that they'll choose to read independently from their local library. So to get into just a few more specifics with those guiding principles in mind, reading is critical. If we can only assign one thing for summer homework, it has always been reading. And so if you're thinking about for your school, your students, or your own children, if you can only do one thing, I would urge you to make that time for reading. We know that when kids read and learn to read exceptionally well, they can teach themselves anything. So really prioritize that time. Here at Success, we have kids read independently for 20 to 30 minutes a day over the summer. For our kids in the middle grades, we actually have a number of books that they read so they can come back and really meaningfully share, just like in an adult book club. And they'll talk about the 3 or 4 books they read over the summer with their classmates. We also assign one book that's read by every kid in the grade. And we really like that because it's a nice opportunity for all of the rising 4th graders, for example, to have read the same book together and come back prepared to discuss. And so a few of our favorites for assigning by grade are The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, a great book for rising grade 7 students. El Defo by C.C. Bell, which we have our rising 4th grade students read. The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate, which is what our kids read between grades 4 and grades 5. As well as Roller Girl by Victoria Jameson, which they read when they're coming into grade 3. So those are just a few of our favorites. I would urge you any way that you can to think about how your kids can read great books. And as many of you said, just get engaged in that reading over the summer. We also do something called One Network, One Book. You may have also heard this called One School, One Book. It's a tremendous initiative, and it's a great way to bring your community together and really talk about and think about one book. The way we approach it at Success is that we have our middle schoolers all read our One Network, One Book. So all of the kids in grades 5 through grades 8 read that, as well as all of our adults. So from our newest teacher, who will be starting this August for the first time, to all of our principals at all of our middle schools and high school and elementary schools, we all read one book. We just announced this here at Success last Friday, and we wanted to share it with all of you as well, whether you want to read the same book along with us or perhaps pick a different book that would be great for your community. The book that we'll be reading here at Success is called Other Words for Home. It's written by Jasmine Warga, and it's just an incredibly powerful book about a girl and her family who are from Syria. She moves to America and just really pushes us to think about what other words for home are and the experience of family, whether near or far, and how important that is. It's a wonderful read, and I would highly recommend that you check it out. We also are focused on math, science, and history. And so if you're thinking about assigning subject-specific homework, I would just really urge you to use the work that you've done already this year. We focus a lot on experiential learning. And so we are thinking about field studies, how for science, for example, our kids are using a butterfly webcam to continue their science exploration in the summer, and really building on experiential inquiry-based activities that kids can do remotely. So that's a bit of what we're doing here at Success. We're excited to hear from you. What are you planning for the summer? What will you be sharing with your communities and thinking about as you plan for the summer? And really, what are you most excited about? So go ahead and share your thoughts now in the event chat. We'll take some time to read and connect together, and we're looking forward to hearing your ideas about what you're most excited about for the summer.
While we wait for those answers to come in, I'm really excited for One Network, One Book. In the past years, we've read some really good ones. I'm blanking on some names right now.
Oh,
But it's
there's so many, Stacey. Ghost was wonderful by Jason Reynolds.
Wonder
About
Boy was 1 year. Is that Wonder Boy?
Wonder was our very first year by RJ Palacio. To your point, Stacey, about all the great things we've seen in remote learning, RJ Palacio's read alouds of Wonder, have just been so wonderful. So if people haven't checked those out, I would highly recommend. Um, so we had Ghost, Wonder. This is actually year 5. This is an anniversary for us. This is the 5th anniversary of One Network, One Book.
It's always
Another
so
one.
Boys in the
Go
Boat
ahead.
we read. It's so nice to always like have when, usually it's when you're grabbing a coffee in the office or something like that, that you can have something common to talk to people about. But certainly now it's, as we see people on Zoom or whatnot, really nice to see, just to have something to talk about, something in common that's not just about work. So we have some answers coming in. Emma's got a resource I'm not familiar with, Wide Open Schools. Encourage you to check it out. I'll check it out as well. Yeah, Lena is gonna start to make things digital. Totally get that. Natasha herself is going to use this opportunity to read and learn more professional books. I myself am doing the same. I just started a new book last night that I'm excited about. Everyone else, Leedy, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but your homework's going to be 100% digital. Yes, certainly makes things a lot easier, and we don't want to avoid those pickups and drop-offs that can be complicated and, unfortunately dangerous at this point. Seema, it's great to hear you're seeing kids much more confident on the Zoom calls. I'm seeing that with my son as well now that he's doing it more often. In the beginning, he really didn't want to talk, but excited to, he's excited to see his progress and his comfort level getting higher there. Connecting with new students, that's going to be really interesting and new, and thinking about what kind of fun and exciting ways can we get to know our new group of students in a remote way potentially. Shipnia is, and again, I apologize if I'm pronouncing this wrong, crafting multimedia projects for them alongside the books that they're doing, which really I love, makes the reading more exciting when you're thinking about what kind of project you're going to make to go along with it. Tim, good luck. Lots of newness for you. I'm sure you're going to be great. Oh, a lot coming in and I'm getting behind. Some people, Casey is switching over to Google Classrooms and is going to get used to that. So I certainly can use the summertime to do mock and try that out and make sure you feel really comfortable with it before your kids come back. Great. And there's some virtual PD available, a lot of it. Too much, but really great, of course, and nice to kind of pick and choose the ones that are most compelling to ourselves. Great. Well, we'll keep going. Keep your answers coming in. It's certainly helpful for us to see and certainly helpful for your colleagues to see.
Yeah, thank you all for the incredibly thoughtful responses. It's just so exciting to hear about Google Classroom and digital homework and new roles. Good luck to all of you who are entering new roles during this remote learning time. For the next portion of our webinar together, Stacy and I wanted to share with you a refresh on our remote learning guiding principles and really give you some insight into where we've gone with phase 2 of remote learning. As Stacy said, it's just gone by so quickly, 2 months since we launched remote learning here at Success. Since March 16th, we have stayed true to these same guiding principles. So these might be a refresh if you've joined us or taken a look at our Robertson Center website, or they might be new to you. And I wanted to just cover those, and then I'll go into some specifics of our phase 2. So for our guiding principles, simplicity is key. We wanted to keep what we know about schooling, what we really prioritize here at Success, and make it simple. We also wanted to make sure the plans could be deployed for any amount of time and indefinitely. We don't know how long this will last. We weren't sure if we would go back to school this year, and like many of you, we don't know when we'll be going back in the fall or what that will look like. And so we're really being thoughtful about making sure the plans are simple and ready for the long term or the short term as needed. We also wanted to prioritize clear roles. Our parents have been heroic during this time, and many of you as educators and many of our educators here to say are parents and educating children. And we wanted to make sure it was so clear and simple, the role of the teacher, the role of the parent, and the role of our kids, as well as the role of our principals in supporting their teachers. We also wanted to prioritize minimal additional rework, meaning that our new remote learning plans are based on the learning we were already planning, the math problems that were already aligned, the literacy units we'd already planned for, or the science experiments that we were going to do in class, but re-envisioning that in a new digital environment. And then lastly, just like many of you, we are digital, remote, and we're really focused on what are those simple, clear digital resources that we can use to support our kids in their teaching and learning. So with all those guiding principles in mind, we launched remote learning. Our kids read at home each day. From the very beginning in March, they started math problems each day, and they've been doing some science videos. As we entered the second phase, so just about 3 weeks ago, we also have integrated a few enhancements. All of these enhancements are really hallmarks of our design here at Success, things we were already doing, but we had to take some time to figure out what they would look like in re-envisioning them for remote learning. And so we did want to share with you a few specifics that we definitely didn't launch on day 1 of remote learning. It took us about 4 weeks to really think about what that could look like and how we would do it, but it's something that we're doing right now across our schools. So the first of those is guided reading, that we know that strategic support of students, really making sure that we're able to coach them, listen to them read, talk with them about the books they're reading is critical to reading development. And it's just a really important part of our day when we are in school together. And so we had to figure out how we could do that in a remote environment and what that would look like. So for us, it's firstly meant using some digital reading resources. We found Epic Books, Tumble Books, Reading A to Z to be particularly helpful, which you can find through your local library or online. And then once we found a shared book for kids to be reading together that's at their grade level, we set up a digital guided reading. And so we send out a link to a video conference, and then we have a small group of students come together. The teacher launches the book. Students were so excited to read this book about butterflies together today. And then the teacher actually will put the call on mute so that he or she can call students individually to coach them. In the classroom, as many of you know, we'll kind of sit next to a student, coach them. It really doesn't work digitally. And so we problem solved to figure out that you could have kids on the same call, but then pick up the phone and give them a call. Coach them for 2 to 3 minutes. Do that for each of your individual students if they're able to have that access to both a Zoom call and a phone, and then have a conversation with them. We've also found that some students don't have access to technology, and so in that case, we relied completely on phone calls. And so kids do read the same book or a book that they're reading that they have at home accessible. And so we do our strategic guided reading support just by using a phone call, talking with them. What did you read? What did you find interesting? And asking some follow-up questions to help them grow as readers. In terms of project-based learning units, we always do project-based learning in the spring. And so we really wanted to figure out what it would look like for us to do project-based learning in a remote environment. Of course, it's not going to be the same as it is in schools. We generally do project-based learning that culminates in a museum. So kids will have a big Brooklyn Bridge museum or a bread museum or birds where their work is posted. All the parents come and visit. We won't be able to do that, but what we can do is provide content that gets kids really excited and really engaged about learning. So the way we've thought about that here at Success is to share names of books or shorter texts. For example, in kindergarten, we learned about bread. So we've shared some read alouds that parents can read with students about bread. We've shared some shorter texts. We've shared some videos about making bread so that we can make sure kids have examples of what that looks like. And then we've used our morning meetings when we come together on video conference to talk about that work and to really get kids excited about learning about the process of making bread, learning the science behind it, and having those great discussions together. In second grade, we do a project-based learning unit on birds. And so we've been able to have our kids learn about birds, really go bird watching, and either from the comfort of their own home and looking out the window, or using some great bird cams to look at birds and bird watch around the world through using digital technology. Our kids have been learning and engaged in the work that they're doing. We're really excited to share out some of this learning with all of you. As it was shared a few minutes ago, we've actually shared the way that we've thought about reading and some of our recommendations for read alouds. We've thought about some of the different math problems and science videos. And we're really excited to share with you some of those great resources, particularly for experiential learning, for science field studies. So look out for those coming your way soon.
Bread seems particularly appropriate, and if you can get your hands on some flour and some yeast, which is not easy right now, exciting for our kindergarten families to start making bread. Not a requirement, of course. So what can you do now, right? It feels like so much is out of our control, and certainly we want to do what we can that's within our control. So we don't know, as Jess said, that what the fall will look like. We don't know if we're going to be remote. We don't know if we're going to be in person. We don't know if it's going to be a combination of both or what it will look like. And so we are planning for all of those realities. And we want to be prepared so that no matter what the reality is, we have a plan following those guiding principles that we've presented today. I would encourage you to do the same. Don't worry so much about what the future will hold. I know it's hard, but we don't know. But worry more about what you can do and how you can be prepared for whatever that future is. One of the things that we can start to do now is to really just gather information. Gather information from your students on how they are doing, right? Have you read a book with them recently? Can they video record them reading a book? Can you get a sense of how they are doing in their reading? Second, can you look at how a child's math homework is being done? Can you look at what is the content that you were able to cover in the end of the year? What content were you not able to cover? Gather all that info and think about what you can do with what you do know. Scholar work is a really great way for you to see what it is that your kids are doing right now, and use that information as data. Use that information to really inform where your school is, your students are right now. As we said before, we've shared kind of our approach for the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of this remote learning. So if helpful, feel free to look at what we have done. I've got a little child here. Hi, sweetheart. Mommy's talking to a bunch of people. But you know what? We're about to be done. We're going to switch to the Q&A. So if you have questions, and I'm sorry that I just totally lost my thought, but I think I was pretty much done. So if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box now, or I'm sorry, in the Q&A box, or if you put it anywhere, I'm sure my wonderful team will find them. And I'm going to turn it over to Becky, who's going to start our Q&A. Did you say hi? This is Riley.
Hey, Riley. Great. Yeah. So let's jump in with some of the questions that have been coming through. Jess, I think this is a question for you. What programs or apps has SA been using for guided reading or annotation?
Terrific. Thank you for asking that. And thank you, Shosh, for sharing out the resource for F&P. That's great. And we really appreciate you sharing it with the group. We have been using Epic. We appreciate that Epic has leveled books. That's not a resource we've used prior to remote learning, but it is currently available for educators for free. And it has this really nice feature where teachers can choose a book and then assign it to students. And so they can get it at home, which is great. We also have been using Tumble Books. Tumble Books is available through the New York Public Library. You can also, if your school is able to get a subscription, you can do it through your network or probably other public libraries. I know it's a really common resource across the country, or you get that New York Public Library card even if you don't live here. And Tumble Books has a great variety of books that can be chosen. For annotation, I saw someone write about that. There are a couple different ways we've done that. One is Google Docs. We're using Google Classroom now for all of kindergarten through 12th grade. We'd never used Google Classroom before remote learning for K4, so that is brand new to us. But we have found it to be a really successful way for parents to have one place they can go to know the guided reading book kids could use. And then when kids are writing about their books, Google Docs are a great way for them to answer a question, and then teachers can give them comments or even give suggestions to their writing right there on the page. So those are a few of our favorites: are Epic, Tumble Books, and then Google Classroom to share out assignments, and Google Docs to share and give feedback on writing.
Great. And a few questions about summer reading. One is logistical. Are you sending families hard copies of books, or will students read everything digitally?
Great question. I've spent more than my fair share of my time over the last couple of weeks figuring that out. The answer is that we have always sent books home, and we are not this year. So for the very first time, all of the books that we are sending home will be digital books. A couple platforms have been helpful to us in that. Audible Stories is currently a free resource, and so we have shared Audible. We also have been looking at Kindle. And so Kindle is a resource you can buy, and Kindle's great to the point someone raised about annotation, that you can, instead of buying hard books like you might have bought for summer in the past, you can use Kindle and kids can annotate in Kindle, which is really neat. And then Overdrive is a resource used by many libraries, and you can also use it as schools. And so those are the three we found most helpful, but the short answer is no paper books. Everything will be digital for us this year.
Great. And a number of folks are really interested in the one book, one network idea. Would love to hear a little bit more about that. Are there specific activities planned around the book for different grade levels, or just would love to hear a little bit more about what that program looks like if other folks want to think about using it as well?
Terrific. Thanks for asking that, Becky. We've really enjoyed one network, one book, or one school, one book, as many people call it. And we've loved that it gives people, as Stacy said, just this commonality that adults get excited about it. One of the best conversations I had with our chief financial officer was about one network, one book when she was in our group. And so a few logistics. One, start by picking a book that you're excited about, a book that you think your community will really love. This year, we actually involved our principals and assistant principals and let them vote. And so my team chose about 5 titles, and we sent it out through a quick, easy, free Google survey and let people vote. And we thought that would be just a great way to get some investment on the front end so that our principals and assistant principals in particular had a voice and got to help us pick a book that would be a great read for our network. Once you've chosen the book, we send an email and send it out to all of our network team, meaning anyone who works in finance or technology or a curriculum team, and make sure that everyone knows how excited we are. We also send it to all of our teachers and all of our principals and assistant principals, just introducing the book and letting them know we'll be reading it together. You can have everyone get it from a library. We generally pick a book that is pretty recent, and so it's easy for people to get themselves. Or you could purchase digital copies if you would have possibly a budget for that at your network. But it's such a long length of time that we give people to read that they could definitely get it at a library for free. We generally announce it in mid-May, and then we do our book clubs at the beginning of the year. So all of our teachers, our leaders, and our students have the entire 3 months to read the book, to spend time thinking about it or talking about it with their families. We find that our kids often talk about it with one another over the summer, which is really special. And so first big point number one is to pick a great book, get people jazzed about it through email. And then we do book clubs at the end of the summer when we come back. We find that's a really special way to relaunch the year. We do that so all of our principals and assistant principals do book clubs with their teachers. We actually do book clubs with all of our principals together. And so one of the very first things we do when our leaders come back in the summer is that we do book clubs with them. And so they're able with fellow principals to talk about the book. Then they share that book with their teachers. And then teachers, after they've had book clubs together, they actually do that with their students. And so all of our middle school students come together and talk about the book. And it provides just this really beautiful cascade where from our CEO to our chief financial officer, everyone on the network talks about the book with the principals. Principals talk about this great book with their teachers, and then teachers talk about this book with their students.
Great. And can you speak a little bit to what the experience in remote learning has looked like for English language learners and students with IEPs? Any sort of learnings from the work there?
Absolutely. In terms of students with English language learners, we have many of them. We are in New York, which is a very urban area, and so many of our students come to us with English as not their first language, and they are learning English. We support them by making sure that we translate the lesson plans. One of the benefits actually of Google Sites is that we have been able to translate so that parents are able to get lesson plans in their first language. So that is one of the ways that we support is by using Google Sites to have translation capabilities. We also make sure to check in with anyone who at the home who's able to support and be really flexible with our phone calls or our Zoom video conferences. So if there's a big sister or big brother who can be really helpful, we'll make sure that our phone calls for coaching students are scheduled at a time that works well with the family. We make sure that we also send out assignments that are really simple. That's been really advantageous, particularly for our students who are English language learners, that we are reading and then writing about a book. And that simple cadence has been really beneficial. Additionally, for our students with IEPs, we've used video conference to do small groups, particularly as we've started Zoom. I don't know if others of you have found this, or Blue Jeans, any video conference you use, that the younger you are, the smaller you want those calls to be. And so for our middle school students, we can have a very large video conference or even a webinar like we're on now where we provide some instructions. But for our kindergarten, first, second grade, we are in very small groups. So 6 to 8 to 10 children on a video conference together. Teachers do small, quick lessons, so 15 minutes, a quick burst of instruction. But that's such a benefit for our students with IEPs, that they are working in a small group, getting dedicated support from their teacher. And so our teachers have really used the IEPs to help guide which students they're working with and what the goals are of that instruction time to best support those students, and in particular, all students, but our kids with IEPs.
Great. And Stacy, I know this is a question close to your heart. So there's a question here about an experience with finding that a lot of families are sort of coaching their students in math and in reading in ways that are different than the educator might like. So wonder how you're thinking about working with families to ensure that they're sort of not introducing lots of new educational approaches.
Yes, great question, and certainly applicable now, but also applicable always. So certainly something we want to think about. Our approach is to really make sure that we have been clear with our parents what we expect from them. Parents are doing the very best they can with what they know, And so we need to, if we find that they're not doing what we expect them to do, we've got to make sure to educate our parents. And so we have given our parents a bunch of prompts that they can use when their children are reading. And so you'll find those in those resources that I know have been shared already. But if you're reading a book, we have about 5 to 10 questions that parents can ask as their kids are reading that really reflect the type of thinking we want our students to be doing and the type of coaching we want our students to have, which in our world is really at least supportive as possible. We want the students to really be doing the work and the parent only intervening when their child is getting to the point of frustration. In math, similarly, we've provided parents with a bunch of questions that they could use. Again, we've also shared those in the resources, but really open-ended questions, making sure parents understand that when a student is struggling with a math problem, the best way that we can help them is not to coach them to the answer, but to coach them to the thinking. And so by asking them questions like, how do you know that? Tell me how you got your answer, prove it, draw a picture, those types of open-ended questions that could be used for any problem. The parent doesn't need to master the content to know that these questions in reading or these questions in math or science or history will work no matter what the problem is. So I'd encourage you to look at those resources and hopefully you'll find them helpful as well. But again, often parents are doing something different because we haven't told them what to do. And so making sure that we've done that really explicitly.
Great. And then Jess, there are a couple of questions here about kind of the logistics of the remote school day. So one is, it sounds like someone was on an earlier session and heard about the strategy of having one strong teacher teach a large group of students with other teachers joining and giving feedback. So the question is Success still using that strategy? And what are we finding about how successful it is?
Great. Thanks for asking. Yes, we are still using that strategy for our upper grade scholars. So for us, that means for students in 5th grade through 12th grade. And we have chosen a teacher who is really clear and oftentimes the most funny or engaging teacher to be able to deliver the whole group instruction. So that would be, for example, in 5th grade literacy, it might be a call with 80 5th graders from one school or 120 5th graders on the same line. But then we actually have all of the other teachers on the call as well. And that's been so beneficial because one teacher can deliver the main portion of the lesson, but all of the other teachers are on and ready to look at kids' work in real time and give feedback. And so, for example, if you're studying, we read Home of the Brave by Catherine Applegate. As kids were reading this book, learning about Keck, who's such a wonderful main character, and answering a question that they would then read the kids' writing in real time, give them feedback on Google Docs in real time. And it's been truly amazing. I actually did a group with several middle school teachers just last week, and they told me how wonderful it's been to have additional time for studying and planning. Because kids are in literacy, for example, for 1 hour a day, then they're in math and science and history. Teachers who are often teaching in a normal school day all day long, from 8 to 4, maybe they have several classes across the day that our teachers are teaching for 1 hour. Then they'll have small groups or office hours for another 1 or 2 hours, but they have multiple hours to plan, to give feedback on student work. And from teachers, we've heard really strong appreciation for that extra time for planning. And then from kids, they've loved all the individual feedback they're getting. And so we have stuck with that model and we'll plan to continue to do so for our last few weeks of school.
Great. And then thinking to next year, is Success thinking at all about some sort of a version of looping where kids stay with the current teacher?
That's a great question. We haven't made that decision yet, but anecdotally, I can share with you that I personally have done that twice and found it to be one of the most rewarding and beneficial aspects of my career. From 2nd to 3rd grade in Denver, Colorado, when I taught in a district school for 6 years, and then actually here when I taught here at Success, I looped from 2nd grade to 3rd grade. I think that it would be a tremendous opportunity for schools to be able to keep those strong relationships with kids. And we actually often do that at Success. Many of our elementary schools are grade growers. So we'll have, for example, kindergarten through second grade. And then when we grow to third grade the next year, we will have teachers loop. So it's something we've done in the past. We haven't made any firm decisions. We're still figuring out our plans for next year. As Stacey said, with planning for the fall, we're still very in process, but if it's something you're considering, it's definitely something personally I would recommend, and that we have certainly done in previous years with Success Academy schools.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about what sort of teacher development has looked like in this period, and what kind of support the network has found it needed to give teachers to make sure that they were prepared to deliver instruction remotely?
Definitely. Thank you, Becky. This was another great lesson learned. I really appreciate talking to teachers, and so plan times. Personally, when I can bring together a group of teachers, they also shared that one of the things they have most appreciated was the amount of professional support and learning that they've had. They spoke specifically to our principals who have been doing planning meetings with them really frequently. And so part of our guiding principles has been clear roles. One of the clear roles for our principals is giving that support and planning. So our principals are continuing to do weekly, sometimes even daily planning meetings, depending on the need and the school. And they bring together the teachers, talk about a book that they're reading for English class, talk about a math topic, or just talk about something really important for reading. And so, for example, we're reading Ambitious Science Teaching right now. I put this in the chat earlier. So all of our principals will be coming together for our principal professional development day next week. We're having book clubs with our principals about that book. Many of our principals will also have their schools read either educational articles or specific books. Another one of our favorites is Principles to Actions, which is a math book, and we've done that for professional development. And then we also do lesson study. So as we're teaching math or science or literacy or history units, we'll bring our teachers together to study the specific resources and prepare for their lessons so that they're ready and supported. In terms of actual remote learning, we've been really continuing observations. And so teachers will go watch someone else teach, and they will sign on when the history teacher, for example, is teaching a lesson and share best practices. And I believe I saw someone share this in the chat earlier, but our teachers have really found that it's pushed them to be creative, and that they've had the space to take the lessons that were already planned from the books to the math to the science to the history content, but be innovative about how they might use Flipgrid to have kids make a quick movie about their history learning, or use a slideshow presentation to have kids show what they've learned. And so that's another aspect of our professional development, has just been how to be creative and strategic so that they can help kids learn.
And then as you think about bringing in new teachers in the fall, how are you thinking about pre-service training?
That's a wonderful question. Another thing that we are very busily thinking about here at Success. One is to make sure that we are supporting them for whatever the fall may bring, that we want them to know what are the basics of teaching, how do you prepare for lessons, how do you thoughtfully manage a class. The really big variable here that we've never had to plan for before is what that looks like remotely, as we are right now in a webinar or video conference, and what that looks like in person. And so honestly, we're planning for both. And we're really thinking about how we can make sure that we have a simple guiding principle. For example, as a classroom teacher, you need to have clear expectations, and you need to let your students know what they're going to learn, what it will look like. Make sure that you as a teacher are clear and simple in your guidance. And that might happen in the classroom if we're able to be in our physical brick and mortar buildings, and it might happen over VC. But either way, teachers' simplicity and clarity in their lessons, their ability to study and be really well prepared for their lessons really does transfer, whether remote or in person. And so we are planning for both and trying to think through. We also, of course, will be likely delivering much of it digitally. And so we're thinking about previously in-person sessions and how we can use BlueJeans, which is the app we're using now, or other video conference software to deliver that instruction.
Great. And I guess a somewhat related question, obviously, you've been able to lean into a lot of your existing relationships with kids and with families. How are you thinking about incoming kindergartners, and what that might look like if we do continue to be in some sort of a remote situation?
A terrific question. I was just talking with someone on our math team about this, and she pointed out to me, Stacey, this will be close to your heart, that we have to teach them to count. And that means that they need something to count. And so we were brainstorming if that means we share out counting tiles and send them, or honestly, more likely that we just get creative. There's so many things in your house you can count. You can count elbows of macaroni. You can count sticks of spaghetti. You can count tiny bears in your bear collection. And so just being really creative about what are the different aspects of learning that we'll need and making sure that we give really good guidance to parents. Kindergarten parents are so excited for their kids' first year. It's one of the most special things, in my opinion, to see the first day of kindergarten, the tears that come with it because it means our babies are growing up, but also just the joy that we get with kindergartners starting. And so we at Success will be reaching out early and often. Once we know the kindergartners that will be coming, we'll be doing phone calls or we'll be doing video conference calls so we can get to know the parents ahead of time and the students ahead of time. We also do welcome webinars and make sure that the principals have a chance to meet parents. And so our principals are actually hosting webinars where, similarly to what Stacey and I are doing right now, our new incoming parents, particularly of kindergartners, but also in other grades, we actually bring in new kids across grades. So they will join webinars to learn about our schools, to get to talk with the principals personally and answer questions. Teachers always do welcome calls, so they'll do that. They'll make sure that they give parents a call and just really support them in understanding our school, building relationships even before the first day of school, and making sure that kindergarten parents especially have questions answered about whether we'll be in our buildings, whether we'll be remote, and really support in building that relationship and making sure they have clarity on the plan.
Great. Okay, you guys are champs. We are down to our last few questions here. But related, Jess, is there anything else that you would add in terms of just generally how you've been keeping families engaged and sort of motivated to log on every day?
That's a terrific question. It's been so important to be responsive to what families need and to keep in contact with them. We have parents who do just any number of jobs. We have parents who are essential workers that are getting up incredibly early in the morning themselves to get to work. We have parents who are working from home and are managing middle school students' work and elementary school students' work. So it's been a really critical priority that we are thoughtful about the fact that this is a hard time, that we all have kids and families and competing priorities, and it's really important that we are thoughtful. So that would be number one, is just that we have worked to give grace and understand that things can happen on a different time frame, and that is okay. And so one way we've supported with that, particularly in elementary school, where our kids are most dependent upon their parents, is by being really clear in our assignments. We've started Google Classroom across K-4, which is something we hadn't ever done before, and parents have really appreciated that. They have one clear, simple place to go and get their assignments, and that's been really helpful. We also make sure to answer questions quickly and to be clear about when we can't. One of the things we noticed is that previously we'd been doing just phone calls for elementary school students. And then once we were able to get Chromebooks quite a few weeks into remote learning, our parents found that teachers were teaching and they couldn't get to them quite as easily as they had been able to in all the previous weeks. And so our teachers were really careful about saying, I'll be teaching from these hours. If you have a question for me, it might take a little bit of time, but I'll get back to you. And so just that really honest, clear communication has kept parents engaged, that they do know when they'll get a response, even if it's not going to be immediate, because the teacher's teaching a guided reading group or a math lesson. And then I think lastly is just making sure that we keep building those relationships during this difficult time. Things are changing for all of us consistently. People's jobs are changing. People's family situations are changing. There are people who are sick, and we need to empathize and be honest with that. And so we've continued to build relationships, be patient, and be real about when things with learning need to change with our families. So those are the ways we've approached it here at Success.
Great. And in our less than a moment left, one network, one book for elementary school students. Do we use it at an elementary school level? Does it look different? And also, Jess, you mentioned a couple of PD texts when you were describing professional development for teachers. Can you just name those once more?
I would love to. For One Network, One Book, we do it in middle school with everyone in middle school, 5 to 8, reading the same book. In elementary school, we do grade levels. And so in our youngest grades in kindergarten, they actually read Super Fly Guy, which has a few different titles and are really fun and engaging. Our kids who are going into second read Mercy Watson. Kate DiCamillo is a great author, and that's a really fun one. I think I mentioned before El Defo by CeCe Bell, Roller Girl by Victoria Jameson. And so we just do grade levels. And so each of our third graders, first, second, third, fourth graders, all read the same title. To actually do those book clubs, we have guiding questions. And so we share some different questions from the book, starting with what's most interesting, what did you love, and then some specific questions about the characters. So all the kids get to start the year with a book that they've enjoyed with family and enjoy together. In terms of the professional development titles, the first that we're reading this coming Tuesday and talking about with our principals is Ambitious Science Teaching. It's a great book that really shows a lot of the hallmarks of inquiry-based approach to science and how powerful that is for student learning. And then another book is Principles to Actions that we've read recently, which is a math text that has just wonderful frameworks, lots of great teacher questions and models of the exact type of thinking and learning you should be doing. And I would highly recommend both of those texts.
Great. Well, we will leave it there on the Q&A, and I will turn it back over to Stacy for any closing thoughts.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jess, for all of your insights and answers and for being able to speak to all the details on the fly. For those of you who don't follow us on social media, please do so. We'd love to see what you're up to. We'd love to hear. And certainly we will continue to share what we are up to. So thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.